Good evening and welcome to this special edition of Showtime TV. I'm your host, Omar Rashada. In honor of Black History Month, this is part one. I'll be interviewing authors, Black authors in honor of Black History Month. And I have a very special guest who just launched another book. And man, it's on the top of the roof. It's a best-selling book. She's going on tour. And she's making a name for herself. She's already a mainstream individual, so she's making a bigger name for herself. Dr. Eunice, good evening, and thank you for tuning in to Showtime TV and being a guest.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Mr. Rashada.
All right, no problem at all, no problem at all. So before we get into the book, I want to ask, how did you get involved with writing?
Well, good evening again to your viewers and everybody that is watching. I am Dr. Eunice Guamisia. And before I answer that question, let me just tell you a little bit who I am. I am, like he just said, the newest Delaware best-selling author, and I am super excited about that. I am also a diversity, equity, and inclusion strategist, a transformational speaker, and the owner and CEO for Unity Solutions, which is a consulting company right here in Magnolia, Delaware. So to answer that question, I have always really been someone who loves reading and loves writing. So I guess it just comes naturally, and I just love to share my story. So the only way I figured out to share my story was to write books. And just the fact that I'm very passionate about helping people, engaging people, and educating people, to empowering people to really embrace cultural differences, I just figured it's the best way to do that through writing it in books. And that's how I really got to writing books, especially about diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Now, is this your second book or third book or first book?
This is my second book.
Oh, second book. Okay, great. Okay, yeah. Great. Also join us in the conversation is the author himself, Pastor Mark Hopkins. He's no stranger to Showtime TV. Pastor, good evening, and thank you for being a guest.
Hey, you're welcome. Thank you, Omar, for having me.
All right. Okay, Pastor, so just got the show started. So we just want to ask people, before we can get into your book, I just wanted to ask you, what made you want to be an author?
Well, actually, I never knew that I was going to be an author. But one thing that I used to say when I was young and coming up, right out of high school in the military, things that I was there was a saying that was coming to me, and I was repeating. I was saying this saying, whatever you want to do in life, whatever you want to be, just write the book. Write the book. Those were the words that was coming to me. Write the book. And then at the end of writing that book, write the book chapter by chapter. By the end of writing that book, you'll be where you want to be in life. So I didn't know that I was going to be an author, but that write the book was one thing that I was saying in my life.
Okay, I want to stay with you, Pastor. I want to ask you, what is the name of your book and what is it about?
Well, the name of my book is called it's What's Stopping You. What's stopping you? And the book is about what's stopping you from reaching your goals, reaching your desires, the thing that God has put in your heart to do, those things that you wanted to do when you were young. We always ask, what do you want to be when you get older? And we all as a child had one thing. But then, I wanted to be an attorney. That I didn't want to be an author. I wanted to be an attorney, and also I thought as an engineer or an architect. But through life, I've had to ask myself, what's stopping me? What's stopping me? And by me asking myself that question, I felt that I know that there's some other people that's having that same problem, that's trying to accomplish certain things, and 10 years down the road, it still hasn't happened. So that's the question. What's stopping you?
All right. Dr. Eunice, the power of your identity. Woo, I love that. What's it about?
The power of your identity. if I may, if you would allow me, just share a little bit of my
Oh,
story.
sure. Oh, sure. Go
Is
ahead.
how this book came about. So the power of your identity, you know, my life has been quite a challenging, but at the same time, very intriguing and joyful, I will say, because I have learned through the process not to dwell on the challenges, but to focus on the lessons that I've learned through this journey. And as I have traveled through this journey and the failures earlier on in life that took me around the world to this beautiful first state of Delaware, I have learned to focus on those lessons, right? But in that process, one of the stories that I like to share is when I finally arrived Delaware looking for a home, I met a stranger and I was having this beautiful conversation. And in the midst of that conversation, the stranger asked me where I was going. And I told the stranger that I was on my way to apply for a job. The stranger immediately said to me, "Do not go to that hospital because they will not give you a job because you're Black, because you have a very heavy accent. More so, you're an immigrant and a woman." You can only imagine how I felt in that moment. I was hurt. I was confused. My heart was really throbbing. Have you ever been in a place or in the moment where you just got really confused and you didn't know what to do? Those haters have told people that when you look different and sound different, you're less of a human. You're not good enough to be a doctor. You're only good enough to be maybe a janitor. You're gonna be a school dropout. So those things sounded as though they were predeterminants to a job opportunity. But then throughout that process, I realized that I had to be the captain of my ship. I had to be the change that I wanted to see. Then later on, I started having conversations with my kids because of my lessons that I learned. And I realized that my kids were starting to have the same problems I experienced in the 90s, in the 21st century. So I asked myself, what is it that we can do to help build thriving communities, to help our kids deal with, really leave a legacy for our children so that they can show up with self-confidence, positive self-image. So I decided to write this book for that reason, because I had navigated living in a new culture. I have helped my kids navigate the school system. I have helped to raise a child who is differently able, or what society calls a child with disabilities. These lessons that I had learned, and that is how this book came about, so that we can begin these conversations at the kitchen table, helping kids to understand that it is okay to be different. It is okay to sound different. It is okay to eat different kinds of foods and not be ashamed of it. It is okay to be yourself, your authentic self. Show up with that good pride in you and know that you are a culture add and not a culture fit. So this book is a guide for parents. It provides tools and strategies of how to start those conversations for parents, believing that socialization starts at home before kids get out into the schools, and then helping teachers really meet the kids where they are, building those inclusive classroom cultures so that we're grooming kids not to bully others, not to make others shy to heat up their food from different cultural backgrounds in school, and so that they're comfortable and have self-confidence for themselves. That's how this book came about.
That is awesome. And as you mentioned, you're not originally from the United States. Where are you originally from?
From the beautiful country of Cameroon in Central West Africa.
Okay. All right. Now, I want to stay with you for a moment because the book talks about identity. So when you came to America, I want to ask you, if you don't mind, what made you want to come to America, one? And then two, once you did come into America, was it a big culture shock, or was it not a culture shock?
Well, what made me come to America, as I indicated earlier, when I was growing up in the cornfields of Cameroon, my village is called Nso in the northwest region of Cameroon. I grew up wanting to be like an educator like my dad. Well, I was daddy's little girl. After I finished high school, I went to the French-speaking University of Yaoundé, wanting to get my degree so I could become a teacher like that. But I refused to learn the French language because Cameroon speaks French and English. I knew from childhood at the age of 12 that I had to learn both languages to succeed in the educational system, but I refused. Those bad decisions that we all make earlier on in life, right? Because I saw that as someone else's responsibility. So I flunked out of college at the age of 21. You can only imagine, I had disappointed my parents. But because my parents valued education, they gave me a second chance in life. That is also when I learned about my cultural responsiveness. My parents had to sell a piece of property to send me to Canada in search of that educational dream, because they just did not want me to just not have an education. So I traveled to Canada to study dental therapy. So while in Canada, I still failed at really allowing my Canadian brothers and sisters to learn about my cultural values and beliefs, because now I was so focused on not failing again, because I wanted to be successful. You know, have you ever been given a second chance in life or at something for that matter? I didn't want to disappoint my parents again. So I focused on succeeding in that dental therapy, which I did, aced it, got a job, but yet I felt like I was still looking for something bigger. And I would move to the Washington, D.C. area, feeling very disheartened and lonely, thinking I was going to come there looking for a place to call home or see people that looked like me. But when I came to the Washington, D.C. area, I realized I was looking for a place to call home. And I finally made that home in Delaware. But then I was really brought to realize about my cultural awareness and sensitivity when I was met with that transformation of somebody telling me I could not apply for a job because I had a heavy accent, because I was a woman, and because I was an immigrant. So that is how my journey took me around the world to get here, just searching for an education, or what others will call looking for the American dream.
Beautiful, beautiful. And Pastor Hopkins, I introduce you as pastor. Just for those in the viewing audience, what led you to what led you to be a pastor, and is a particular church that you pastor, and what state are you at?
Okay, actually, you know, God is, you know, I'm not a pastor over a church. I have been ordained, but you know, I have pretty much known all my life that God had His hand on me. You know, there's times where He's actually revealed, you know, things that He's wanted me to do. He's been kind of leading me my whole life. I ran from Him for years, and you know, I can never get away. I can never get away. You know, and He's with me. You know, I'm with Him, and He's with me now. So, you know, I'm in Chicago by way of Plainfield, Illinois. I do attend Victory Worship Center. Pastor Norfolk, Smokey Norfolk, is the senior pastor. I'm not a pastor in that church, and I was not ordained in Victory. So basically, Victory is my home. So that was actually the first church that I joined when I moved out to the Chicago area back in 2005. So I've been, I kind of left, I left Victory for a couple of years, and I'm back.
Right. You know, when I look at both of your books, they're kind of similar. The two words that come to mind is inspirational and motivational. I want to ask both of you, I was thinking in my mind, public speaking, because when you have books that's inspirational and motivational, one tends to be, or one can be a motivational, a public speaker, you know, doing lectures, doing educational forums. I want to ask both of you to, through your writings, or even before you wrote, did any one of you do public speaking, be participating in forums and seminars? Because just based on your books, I can vision both of you to just speaking in front of large crowds and giving inspiration and motivation to others. Whoever wants to go first can. Go ahead, Pastor. You go first, Pastor.
Okay, well, I'll say now. No, actually, you know, I have done. You know, I was at the NAACP at one point. I've been in the AXO competition when I was young. I won a. I wrote. You know, I wrote poetry. I was a writer, writing poetry back then. At 15 years old, I won a trip to New Orleans, writing a poem. Got the bronze medal that year. I think the gold medal that year, and then second place medal, and then the year after that, I got the bronze medal. So, as far as writing, I've always been a writer. You know, I've always had artistic skills. You know, I do draw, so I'm an artist, and I also write.
Okay.
You know, I grew up writing music, rap music was one of my things. So, and again, with all of that, you know, I never knew that it was going to end up being a book coming out.
All right. Okay, great. Dr. Eunice, public speaking, forums, seminars, and I know you got to. I know you got to. You're a doctor.
I think Pastor got one up on me. I cannot sing. If I start singing here, you all will go running. Your audience will probably all drop off of Facebook. I cannot sing, no matter, and I cannot draw at all. So Pastor is up one on me or two.
Well, we all got different talents. We all got different talents. You know?
Yeah, but definitely public speaking is my thing. I love being on stage. I love motivating people and really transforming them from, you know, where they're stuck and getting them unstuck. And I enjoy doing conferences, and just, it's really my thing, because I just believe, and I believe it's Les Brown who says you can find the richest people in their resting places, and that's at the graveyard. Because, you know, think of it this way. If you have a story, if you have something, there's somebody out there that is just waiting for that message to change their life. So please don't think that what you have, the message you have, is too small. Just put it down, take your pen to paper, or go out there and just speak it. If you're still waiting to write that book, there's a message, whether it's a podcast, whether it's a YouTube message, whether it's Facebook, just deliver the message. There's somebody out there that's waiting for that message to change their life. Maybe it's somebody that is just trying to make the wrong decision, and that message will change their life. So don't think that you're not a public figure, that you're not a speaker. That message alone can change someone's life. Just do it, and do it now. As simple as that. You don't have to be great to start, but start to become great.
Right. I want to ask you both, how long did it take you to write the book? We'll start off with Dr. Eunice. How long did it take you to write the book? Did you face any challenges in regards to writing the book? For example, did you get writer's block? Did you get stuck and had to do some intensive research, et cetera, et cetera?
Absolutely. You know, one of the biggest challenges for me is I get in my own head.
Okay.
You get in your head, you're thinking, well, is this how I want it? But you sometimes have to get in the reader's head and not your head. You overthink it, and you're thinking it from your perspective, but you really need to think it from the reader's head. Who are you writing the book about? And who are you writing the book for? In this case, I was writing for parents and teachers, but it's really about our children. How can we best help our children? What's the legacy that I want? What is the message? Because you really start about reflecting, doing some really so deep reflection. What is the message that you want to get out, and who is it for? Then you do your research. But in the process, these voices get into your mind like, okay, are you in the right path? But what I did is, besides just doing the research, I really carried out interviews, because my book is really laid out in pillars. It's diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And under each pillar, it's chapters. And within those chapters are case studies. And then at the end of each chapter are reflection points and a guide or key discussion points. And then at the end of the entire book is a guide for parents, a guide for teachers. And then there is the landscape section of the book has recipes, because we're talking about diversity. And I wanted to bring a flavor to the book that is unique. So I decided to talk about languages and food, because when we're around music and food, those encounters are usually unique. That's when we become our true authentic selves, because we're in a celebratory mode. So I gave some few recipes that relate to the case studies, the different countries where my case studies came from. So some sampling of those recipes. Famous jollof rice. If you guys know anything about the jollof rice fight in Africa, we all want to compete and say my jollof rice from Cameroon is the best over Nigeria, over Sierra Leone and Ghana. So there's an ongoing love fight about jollof rice. So I have that in the book. And then I have a few other recipes. I also do a sampling of greetings in different languages, because I believe that when we come over food and music, it's a celebration. So I have that in that landscape. And I also have a care plan or a lesson plan for teachers on microaggression. So that's a little bit of that landscape. So with that, I did a little bit of interview with students. I wanted to get their perspective of what it means to have an inclusive classroom. And I had a diverse group of students who shared with me what their perspective was in what it means to have a teacher who is inclusive in the classroom. What does that look like? What is it like when a teacher talks to you? And what is your perspective of a good teacher versus a teacher who is not being inclusive in the classroom? And how would you respond to those situations and circumstances if they do arise? And it was quite interesting to really hear the voices of students telling you what they're sharing their perspective. And I also spoke with parents. So I got a really good picture of what it was like. One example of a case study in the book is a young lady, I call her Sarah in the book. And she comes from a background. Mother is from Jamaica. Father is an Indian. She grows up, her and her parents are separated. She stays with the mother. Her and her mother moved to Florida area. She goes into a school. Population is heavily students from a Hispanic background. She finds herself within this culture, and okay, she wants to fit into the community. She ends up identifying herself as a Hispanic girl, speaks Spanish fluently, and does not identify with either Indian background or her Jamaican background. Speaks Spanish fluently, ends up marrying a Hispanic person. Talk about identity crisis. It's up to the reader to decide whether it's an identity crisis or whatever else they want to call it. But the question becomes, why did she decide to identify as a Hispanic girl instead of really what her background is, right? But that's up to the readers to go buy the book and decide that. So it then gets into questions for the readers to decide. So it's really, I'm proud of the end product, and that's how the book is laid out. And that's just, you know.
Right. So I want to go back. You mentioned you discussed foods in your book. Did you, I don't know if you mentioned this or not. I can't recall. Do you ever also focus on music as well? Because of diversity, you know, we all kind of music.
I mentioned music in passing, but I did not write particularly about any particular music in the book. It's just food and recipes and then language. Okay,
so with the food, the recipes and language, you mentioned that you interviewed children. Did you interview adults about about different foods and languages? Or
yes,
man, yeah.
The foods in there have people who provided the recipes. I have where is she from? Oh my God, I just drew a blank. I have a recipe, it's a grandmother's recipe. I think it's Puerto Rico, a grandmother's recipe. So they're credited in the book. It was her grandmother, is passed now. And she found her grandmother's, I think it's red rice and beans. She found her grandmother's recipe. So her grandmother is credited in the book for that recipe. And then there's another lady out of Frederick, Maryland, but she's originally from Cameroon. Her recipe is called kati kati. It's really plain chicken cooked with palm oil. And it is a delicacy. It's something we eat on Sundays and with fufu corn. And it is just, it's incredible. And then there's an Indian rice and all of that. So each person is credited in the book for their recipe.
All right, so Pastor Hopkins, how long did it take you to write the book, and were there any challenges you had to face?
Yes, I mean, it took me 3 years to write it. And, it is not a very long book. I wrote it for one, when I started writing it, I thought, okay, I want to write this book. I don't want it to be a long book. I don't want it to be a real thick book. I want it to be a book that people that don't want to read, people that really don't like reading, will pick up the book and read it, and benefit from it. Someone that's not really reading is not the particular thing that they like to do, and because it's a quick book, something that can they can pick up and read and give them a power pack amount of information. So it took me 3 years, and the actual book, What's Stopping You, pushed me through the book. Because there's times where I would start writing, and it would just come out as like it was a waterfall. The words was just coming, and then it a chapter go, I get done with a chapter and it stop, and then I won't have something for about a week, and I know I need to get back to writing, and then I ask myself, what's stopping you? So the book kind of pushed me, and I sit down, and then all of a sudden that waterfall start coming again. And then I start thinking, that this book, it needs to be brought out. People that are going through, people that feel like they can't achieve, feel like they can't prosper, feel like they are the low man on the totem pole. This book is to motivate them, to give them the ability, not the ability, but just the want to say, I can do this. I can take that attitude, that I can't attitude, and change that to an I can attitude, and start developing an I can attitude behaviors. Start thinking that I can. Start doing I can. And then whatever they start doing, they get in the role I can, then all of your results will be positive. So it just pushed me through. I had to keep asking myself the same question: what's stopping you? What's stopping you? Who do you want? Who needs to hear this? Who needs to read this book? Anybody that's trying to better themselves, anybody that's stuck in a rut, anybody that's trying to do something and find themselves lacking, stopping, and not moving forward. What's stopping you? And this basically based on a lot of my experience, because God brought me a long way in a mighty short time. Out in California, I was making I think when I started out in California, I was making $5.50 at 25 years old, $5.50 an hour. God moved me very quickly, very quickly. Now over 6 figures. Within that time that he's brought me through on this journey, and I'm still pushing and moving ahead and trying to accomplish. And now, even today, I have to ask myself, what's stopping you? Because there's some things that I'm trying to get done now. So I'm still asking myself that question.
Yeah. So, Pastor, let me give you an example. When you talk about what's stopping you, as Dr. Eunice mentioned earlier, people have barriers, and one of the barriers could be being a female. One of the barriers could be being a person of color. One of the barriers from those achieving their goals is a lack of education, a lack of finances. So with those examples, if someone came to you and said, Pastor Hopkins, I'm Black, I'm a female, only have a 10th grade education, only make $8 an hour, I can't buy a house, I can't buy a car, I can't do the things I want to do because I just don't have the education to advance in a bigger job, a bigger career. What do you say to those type of individuals?
What I say to them is, the first thing I say is, start where you are. Start where you are. Start. You working a job right now. Okay, continue working that job. Use that job as your put that job on your resume. Do the things that's going to better yourself. Continue to better yourself. Continue going to it don't have to be college, but go to some type of training. Go get some training while you're doing that. you know, if you're in a field over here doing this that's not really working for you, think about, okay, so what kind of field that you're going to go into, that you want to go into, that will provide you the type of money that you want. Okay, so while you're working on that job, okay, take that extra time, burn that midnight oil. You know what I'm saying? You may have to go a little bit harder. Use that little time that you have. Use the time that you have to work on going to go get a certification in what you want to do. When you get that certification, put that on your resume. It may be a week's training. It may be a day of training. Put that on your resume. The next time, go get some more training. Put that on your resume. You got to build your resume like you building a house. What kind of house do you want? Do you want a house like God said? Do you want a house that's built on sand, or do you want a house that's built on a strong foundation? Build your resume the same way you building a house. Invest in yourself. You know, it may cost you $150, $200 to go to this seminar, to get this training. You know, you get a certification. Put that on your resume. Build up your resume. There was a time I went for a job interview after building up my resume. I went for a job interview and I had my resume sitting on the table. They called my name and there was 2 marks, 2 Mark Hopkins.
Oh boy.
Now this is not in a book yet, but there was 2 Mark Hopkins. And they called Mark up, called me up. I walked up and there was the application and the resume that they had. They pushed it in front of me. It was 2 pages. And I looked at it and I said, no, that's not my resume. And I looked over. My resume had 4, 5 pages with all my training and everything that I had on it. See, but, you know, I don't know if they expected me to come with that type of ammunition, you know, but have that artillery on my resume. Build your resume up. You know, right. When I sent my resume out one year, you know, I before I even got with the company I'm with now, I sent my resume out, and within that day, I had 8 companies trying to get me.
Wow.
8 in one day.
That's awesome.
You got to have a strong resume. And the only way to get a strong resume is to put the time in and put that stuff on your resume, build your resume, and every little thing that you do counts to your resume. If you got good character, that counts on your resume.
Right. I want to stay with you, Pastor. I want to ask you both, let you go first. Publishing. You know, when you write a book, you got to either find a publisher or self-publish. How did you go about publishing your book?
I actually went with a publishing company, and Author House. They actually, I just paid them. They, you know, I got my cover designed by a gentleman that's actually, you know, is part of the family, and designed the front cover. Author House did the back cover, but then they, you know, I paid them to actually take my words, put it on the book, and then and publish the books. Okay.
Dr. Eunice, same question.
Yes, I used a publishing company as well. I'm a firm believer that I'm not an expert in everything, so I stay in my lane. There's no way I'm going to self-publish because I am not trying to get in somebody else's lane. So my publisher did everything. My packet included the book cover design, editing, and everything. So I just wrote the book, sent it to them, the book cover, and everything was done for me. So I used a publishing company.
Okay. Okay. And so your experience using a publishing company, did you both like it? Were you satisfied with the work that they've done?
Oh, yes. I loved my company. I use a company called Victorious You Press, and the founder and CEO for that company is a woman of God, which is number one, what I liked about it. And she and I just, I met her actually through another friend. They were actually my former students that I moderated their book launch during COVID. The two young ladies that wrote a book during COVID, they were my former students at Delaware State University. So I moderated their book. And that's how I got to know about this company. And we connected at that time. And I, asked her if she did books of the type of book that I wanted to write. And she did. And we connected then, and the rest has been history. So I was very, very happy with how she did her book. She does coaching as well. So she helped with the process, mapping out the book. If I got stuck, I called her, we prayed, and she starts her coaching with prayers. So that to me was a piece that was missing with other publishers that I have used before, especially my first book. I met that publisher during a speaking engagement at Harvard, and he was actually transitioning from publishing to cosmetics. And I did not get the type of coaching that I got with this book. So especially with the marketing strategy, it was nothing compared to this. So no wonder I hit bestseller with this book compared to the first book. So I was very happy. And I have recommended so many people to her with this publisher compared to the first one. So I am very, very happy.
Now, where's that publishing company located?
North Carolina.
North Carolina. Okay, gotcha.
Yes.
Okay, Pastor Hopkins, are you satisfied with your publishing?
Yes, I'm very satisfied with them. I think they're very professional. I enjoy them. When I even now, whenever I need books, I can call and the author's books, I can just pay for it, and it comes, they come, within a short period of time. Don't have to wait long. They did a great job keeping in contact with me, calling to get the information that they needed to continue to get the book moving forward. So I was very satisfied with them, and still are.
All right. So I want to ask both of you, one of the most exciting things after you write the book, I'm going to go as far as to say the most exciting thing is doing a book signing. I mean, you get to go out, meet people, you're sitting behind a table, you got your books right here, people coming up, looking at your book, buying your book, asking for your autograph. I mean, it's just built that much self-esteem in you when you feel like a star. I mean, it's an amazing moment. So I want to ask both of you, I don't want to assume, but I want to ask you both, whoever wants to lead can lead. Have you ever had a book signing with your book? And if so, talk about that experience. You got the green light, Pastor.
She can go first.
Oh, okay, go ahead, doctor. The ladies first.
All right. Thank you, Pastor. I did not do a book signing with my first book, so I am super pumped with this one because I already have one scheduled. I have one scheduled at the Wilmington Library on March 17th from 2 to 4:30 p.m. So I'm looking forward to that. I am excited. So I don't know what it's going to feel like. I'm getting excited just thinking about it. So, and then I think there's another one that we're working on at Delaware State University on the 24th of March. And somebody just reached out trying to plan another one. This person is in the restaurant business, trying to plan a big event in Rochester, New York. When they heard about the book, they reached out. So it's exciting, a lot of excitement. I went out to dinner last night with a group of women, support group of women. And one lady already reading the book in chapter 4, she's like, Eunice, this book is not only for parents and teachers, it's for everybody. I don't know why you think it's only for parents and teachers. She said, you're talking to me. And she started sharing her story, how they grew up in New Jersey and how her mother told her about dating a Black boy. And she started crying. She said, girl, this book needs to get into every space, corporate office and schools and everything. She said, I cannot wait to give you a review after I finish the rest of the chapters. And she herself is going to plan another book signing. So I'm very, very excited and humbled that it's already starting to create impact and the buzz that is going around. So I'm looking forward to these book signings because I didn't do one with my first book. So I'm really excited and looking forward to it.
Now, when did this book come out?
It's already the hard copy is already on pre-orders and the Kindle is live on Amazon already. So
Okay.
I just ordered, I should be getting my copy in a few days. So I'm already putting the mass copies order in.
That's awesome. All right,
Yeah.
Pastor Hopkins, have you had a book signing or even
Yeah, same here.
take
You know, no, I didn't do a book signing. I was, you know, it's something I was getting ready to do or starting to do, but you know, I was pretty much so excited about my book. It was like the first, you know, I pretty much gave away all the first copies that I got. I gave them away, you know, signed my autograph to people, and you know, I might be in a store somewhere and I talking to somebody, you know, and I say, you know, I want to bless you with a book. And I just, you know, give them a book, sign it. So, you know, that's something I thought about doing, but I didn't. But I, you know, I go out and I do a lot of vendor events, you know, and that, you know, I really get joy from that, you know, setting up my table, putting up my stand with my book, and you know, I'll sell books there and take pictures with people, you know, give them my autograph, take pictures with them at my stand, and you know, and I really enjoy that, talking to them about my book. You know, I tell you, I was talking to one lady not too long ago at an author's brunch, and she came over and got to talking to me about my book, and she was like, "Well, you know, I'm just trying to figure out if I want to buy your book."
Mm.
She said, "If," you know, and we got to talking, and I started speaking to her about the book and the motivating things that push you into your destiny, and somebody came to her and started talking to her and kind of pulling her away as we were talking, and then finally I kind of just let up and let them go, and you know, and probably about, you know, 30 minutes later she came back and bought the book.
awesome.
So she said, I want to buy your book. She said, you know, I want to buy your book. And she came back and bought it. So I, you know, and we took a picture, and I said, you know, it is awesome. You know, that, you know, I think by us talking, you know, she even felt motivated, you know, and I talked to some people, and they say, you know what, I've never even met you, first time talking to you. But I mean, right now, I mean, you just motivated me in the short time that we've been talking, you know, you know, and changed my perception. So, you know, it's definitely, you know, something I enjoy doing.
Right.
So my next one, I'm definitely going to have, you know, God says the same. I'm definitely planning on having a book release.
All right. So I want to ask you both, family. Family can be your biggest supporters. They can also give a lot of opinions, constructive feedback, constructive criticism. So I want to ask you both, because you know, when we write something, I guess the first people that we tend to share with is our families for the most part. So, did you share your book with your family, and then what was your response from your family? Let's start off with Pastor.
Yeah, I shared it with not all of my family, but you know, I had a nephew read it, you know, before it actually became a book, and you know, and I didn't have the book there yet. I think he was probably 15 at the time, and I asked him what he thought, you know, and he was like, you know, he said he really enjoyed it. Then he went on to say that, you know, the funny thing is, he said that he's received, you know, he's got big books from, you know, football players that's written these books, you know, NFL players, and these books are very thick, you know. And he said the funny thing is, as many pages as they got, and as fewer pages that you have, I really seem to got more out of your book. So that was very nice, and I really enjoyed hearing that. And he even told me the part of the book that really drawed him the most, because each chapter, you know, kind of points to, it might pull certain people. You know, the first chapter is, who are you? it asks a question, who are you? It talks about navigation, who are you? You want to go somewhere, first of all, you need to know where you are. When I was in the Marine Corps, when I was in the Marines, when we navigated and we were going from one area to the next, the first thing we did was put down a map. We orientated the map and we found out where we are. And then when you find out where you are, where are you going? So then, you find out where you are, you can figure out where you're going. So that's why the first chapter is, who are you? Second chapter is, where are you trying to go? What do you want to do? And then some of those chapters is, on there, one of them identified to him. When he read it, he was like, that really, he thought about the situation that he was in, because he was actually I was helping him and his sister. They were actually in foster care. So they came out of foster care coming through me. So God blessed me to be able to bring them into the house,
right,
so they can get out of foster care. And so he read that, he was like, that really identified with me, and it had me thinking about everything that I went through and where I'm at today. So each chapter kind of, one person will be like, one person will kind of identify with one chapter the most. So,
Okay, so Dr. Eunice, have you shared the book with your family, and what was their feedback?
Well, not really, but I did with my daughter. And the reason is because in there, it's really dedicated to her and her brother, because
Okay,
she is very particular about sharing her perspective with me on a lot of things. And
okay,
we go back and forth with this idea of diversity, equity, and inclusion. She's always calling me back to task, especially when it comes to her perspective on, or her view, I should say, on how I handle certain things as a diversity, equity, and inclusion strategist. If I happen to use a certain word, especially when it comes to pronouns, or say something about an issue, she's quick to say, Mom, but you're a diversity, equity, and inclusion strategist, so you should not be saying A, B, C, or D, so she's very quick to correct me on certain things. So I really, and based on our conversations again, about some of these issues in school systems and you just technically in the world out there. So I felt that it was very important, and I really respect her views. And with my son being, differently abled, and those experiences, that this book be dedicated to them. So I wrote a particular letter because this was really about them, and they motivated me or inspired me to write this. So that special letter is in the book, so that when they grow up, they can someday show this book to their kids and say, hey, grandma wrote this book because of you guys. So you can show them, and the legacy can continue, so they read it and she's proud of it. And but the other person that I had given it to read was somebody from my country that's a journalist, and he had wrote a very beautiful foreword on the book, and he read the book in one day and thinks that this is going to be very impactful, not only here, but around the world. So
awesome.
yeah.
Right, so as we close out the show, once again, this show is in honor of Black History Month. So I want to ask you both, starting off with Dr. Eunice, are there any Black authors that you had come to admire?
None that I could really think of the top of my head. Isn't that a shame? Now I just drew a blank, and I'm sure there's one, but I really can't think of anyone right now.
Okay. Pastor Hopkins.
I'm gonna say there's a gentleman that I listen to. He's actually Facebook friend of mine. He has a group, but motivating speakers, dominant speaking group that Dr. Will is his name, Dr. Will, and he's written about 56 books. A Black man, man, that's something that really inspired me. Now, I mean, I already had my book written, before I met him. I met him on one of the book author groups on Facebook.
Okay, gotcha.
I noticed that he was doing he had posted about his books, and I thought that was pretty interesting that a black guy, somebody, of my race, he talked about his background, coming out of Compton, California, a gang banger to, a motivating speaker that speaks in front of a lot of big industries and companies and push a lot of people.
Right.
So with me, same thing. Coming out of Fort Wayne, born in Cleveland, grew up in Fort Wayne. Father and mother, divorced at a young age when I was 13. Excuse me, when I was 13 years old. So I found myself pretty much, looking to, grow into the man that I want to grow into. But I'm looking at my example. One of my examples was my brother, which was my oldest brother, and I wasn't no angel, but he one thing about him, he was more of a bad example. There was times I would look at him and say, no, that's not what I want to do. So, and I wasn't no angel again. I had my problems, but glory to God, he kept me moving in the right direction, when I went into the military. But, with me, again, Dr. Will, because of what he's doing, he's showing that, hey, just because you're black don't mean that you can't do it. You're black, young, and I'm speaking to men and women, but I definitely want to speak to the young boys, because we are the ones that don't, and I'm gonna say black because we are the ones that are truly affected and not being able to grow. A lot of us are leaving this earth, leaving this planet very young, and they don't feel like they can grow, and accomplish anything. But you look at certain people, Dr. Will, even myself, I'm author of one book, but we can, I came from a single family home. My mother was the only one that raised, my father and her separated, and he went his way. I didn't see him again until I was out of the Marine Corps, out in California, maybe 25 years old. So, we all go through, we all have experiences. So we just have to remember, like my book says, what's stopping you? What's stopping you? What's stopping you? You can do it. You can achieve it. Don't let what's going on. Build, like I said, build your resume, build your job history, do the right things, and you'll make it far.
All right. So I want to ask you the last
And
question.
I drew a blank, but Michelle Obama, the light we carry is my,
right.
yeah.
Right. Yeah, that was a best-selling book as well.
Yeah. Because, I
So,
could relate with her, feeling like she did not belong, and just being in the White House. Who is she, this little black girl, finding herself there and always doubting herself, and being able to give those strategies to handle the stress of those who doubted her. Because as a matter of fact, I actually did an analogy of her artwork at the Delaware Art Museum in 2019, when they displayed all the African artwork in the museum for, I think it was 6 months. Her artwork was one of those that I did an analogy for, and her artwork was hung, and then our pictures were hung next to that with the analogy that we did in the art museum for 6 months, which I was proud of that.
right.
So that would be my black artist.
Okay.
Writer.
Pastor, where can people get your book? How much is it?
Okay, yeah, and I did want to throw that Dr. Will Moreland, Morland. You can get his books. I'm sure you can pretty much find them anywhere on Amazon and all that good stuff. Moreland, Dr. Will Moreland, awesome person. So if you anybody out there want to hook up with somebody that's real good, you know, go in this direction. They can get my book from Amazon. You know, a lot of times I'll just Google it. You know, that's the quickest way for me. I'll go to Google, put in Mark Hopkins, what's stopping you, with the question mark, and then it pulls up the different locations where they can get it. They can get it on Amazon. They can get it at Barnes & Noble, Author House. There's other locations that's selling it, but normally I say the best place is Amazon, and I think on Amazon it's like $11.99.
Okay, Dr. Eunice, where can people find your book and how much is it?
Yes, the Power of Your Identity right now, the Kindle version is on Amazon right now. I believe it's $9.99. And the paperback is on pre-order through our landing page on www.eunitysolutions.com. And eUnity is spelled EUNITYSOLUTIONS.com. But it's ultimately going to be on Ingram Sparks. So it can be on Barnes and Nobles and all of that, but it's on landing page right now for pre-orders. And I can provide you that link to put on your post if you want that. Yep.
Okay, great. All right, so thank you both for being guests this evening. You were both wonderful and awesome guests. Wish you luck and much success in your books. As you know, you're going to sign them, get them signed and get them sold and published and all that other good stuff. So Dr. Eunice, I hope to come to your book signing. So thank you both for coming on. Now, if people want to contact you both, how can they contact you? Go ahead, Pastor.
They can contact me at on my one email, mahopk@hotmail.com. Again, that's mahopk@hotmail.com. Send me an email, or either they can go to my website. I believe it's www.online.com. Online, www.wecan, WECAAN. That's www.wecan, WECAAN, which stands for We Can Achieve Advancements Through Networking. WeCan.com. And that's my website. That's where they can go in. They can actually get the book through there too, you know. And that's that's my website. And the We Can is an organization that God has given me to, you know, uplift and train the youth, you know, and give them that we can attitude, you know, and teach them, give them experiences that they would normally get, that they normally wouldn't get. So those are the two locations.
Okay. And Dr. Eunice, how can people get in contact with you?
Awesome. In order to contact me, you can follow me on all social media platforms. We're on LinkedIn, Instagram as eunity.solutions or eunity-solutions on Facebook. You can also get me through email at Eunice Gwamisia75, which is EUNICE GWANMESIA75 or you can send us an email at admin@eunitysolutions.com and through our website, www.eunitysolutions.com, which is EUNITYSOLUTIONS.com. And we also help your organizations improve workforce diversity, teach you how to embrace cultural differences, and nurture a culture of inclusion and belonging. So let us help you with your workforce challenges so you can improve team performance and increase that retention. We are here for you.
Yeah, thank you so much. For those who are watching, please like, subscribe, and share. Once again, thank you both for being special guests. Happy Black History Month, and I look forward to interviewing you both in the future.
All right.
Thank you so much for having us.
Okay. God bless. Have a safe weekend.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you. Nice meeting you, Pastor Hopkins.
Same to you.
All righty.